He took my last meal. The wind blew cold across the empty planet. Dust danced in the air like ghostly hands. Marcus pulled his jacket tighter and looked at the sky. No ships, no signals, no hope, only silence. His ship had crashed 2 days ago. He had searched the wreckage, the rocks, even the dry caves. All he found was one meal pack, his last meal, and now it was gone. He stared in shock as the girl ran. She was small, fast, and clearly not human. Her skin was pale blue, her hair like silver wires. She held the food pack close to her chest and didn't look back. Marcus felt fire in his chest. That was his food, his only food. Without it, he would die here. He grabbed his scanner and followed her footsteps in the dust. His legs were weak, his lips dry, but anger gave him strength. After 10 minutes, he saw her again. She had stopped near a broken wall, part of an old alien building. She wasn't eating the food. She was opening it slowly, carefully. Then Marcus saw something behind her. He froze. A group of small figures lay in the shadows. Alien children, thin, silent, barely alive. The girl gave the first piece of food to the smallest child. Then another, then another. Each one took a bite and smiled weakly. They didn't speak. They couldn't. Marcus stepped forward, and the girl jumped. She stood in front of the children like a guard. She didn't run this time. She was scared, but she was brave. Marcus raised his arm. Slowly. He had no weapon, but he wanted her to know he wasn't going to hurt them. I thought you stole it for yourself, he said quietly. The girl said nothing, but her eyes told him everything. These weren't just strangers. These were her people, her family, maybe. They were all she had left. Marcus sat down on the cold stone. He looked at the children, then at the food pack, now almost empty. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. Do you understand me? He asked. The girl tilted her head, then nodded slightly. I'm Marcus, he said. Pointing to himself, she didn't reply. She just pointed at the smallest child. Then at her heart, Marcus understood she wasn't just their sister. She was their protector. He looked up at the sky again. Still nothing. No rescue, no help. Only him, and now, them. I can help, he said softly. He didn't know how. He was hungry, tired, and lost, but something inside him wouldn't let him walk away. The girl slowly came closer. She handed him the last bite of the meal pack. Marcus stared at it, surprised she was giving it to him. Even though she had nothing, he shook his head and smiled. You need it more, he whispered. She didn't smile. But she placed the food beside him and walked back to the others. Marcus didn't eat it. Instead, he stood and looked around. There had to be more food somewhere. Water, supplies, anything. He turned to the girl and pointed toward the hills. Come, he said. We look together. She paused, then nodded. She picked up the smallest child and followed him. As they walked into the dust and wind, Marcus felt something change. He was still stranded, still starving, but he wasn't alone anymore. They searched old crates, broken machines, and caves. Found a little water, some dry roots, and metal pieces. Not enough to live long, but enough to try. That night, they sat around a small fire made from broken wires and plastic. The children slept in a pile, arms around each other. The girl sat close to Marcus, silent but watching. Marcus looked at her and said, "Thank you." She didn't speak, but she nodded again. He thought about Earth, about the war, about the stories. Everyone said aliens were monsters, but this girl gave him her last food and what he saw behind her. It broke his heart. Tomorrow, he would search again, not just for himself, but for all of them, because now they were his too. Marcus opened his eyes to darkness. The fire had gone out, and the cold returned. He sat up slowly, his body sore from the hard ground next to him. The alien girl still watched him without saying a word. The children were still asleep, thin bodies huddled close like leaves in the wind. He stood up and stretched, his joints aching. Then he looked at the small bite of food the girl had left. Beside him, he didn't eat it. Not last night, not now. He picked it up and walked to the girl. She looked confused as he held it out to her. "For them," Marcus said, nodding at the children. The girl gently took it and quietly placed it beside the smallest one. No thanks, no words, just action. Marcus respected that. The sun was rising, casting a dull orange light over the broken land. Marcus scanned the horizon, but saw no movement, no ships, no rescue. Not even birds, only silence and shadows. He turned to the girl. "Water," he said, pointing at his mouth. "Then the sky. Food," he added, rubbing his stomach. "Search," she seemed to understand. She stood, pointed at herself, then at the ground. She made a circle in the dirt. This was their shelter. Then she pointed to a narrow path between the rocks. "A trail, maybe." Marcus nodded. And the two of them started walking. The path was rough, filled with broken glass and metal. Old signs, written in a language Marcus couldn't read. Buildings fallen long ago, buried by time and dust. They found a rusted pipe with a slow drip of water. The girl dropped to her knees and cupped her hands. Marcus pulled out his emergency pouch and filled it slowly, drop by drop. It wasn't much, but it was clean. They would share it. Farther down the path, they reached what looked like a destroyed storage building. The roof was gone, but some walls still stood. Inside were broken crates, scorched shelves, and half-buried cans. Marcus pulled one out and shook it. Empty, another, empty. Then the girl called softly. Marcus turned. She held something in her hand, a pack with writing he could read. Military. Ration type C. He rushed over, checked the pack, and smiled. Still sealed. Still safe. One meal for one person. He looked at the girl, and she looked at him. No fight, no snatching this time. He nodded and placed it in his pouch. They returned to the shelter. The wind stronger now. Dust blew across their faces, making it hard to see, but they found the others. Still sleeping, still alive, barely. Marcus opened the ration pack and cut it in small pieces. He gave each child a bite, one by one, careful, gentle. When they ate, their eyes lit up for a moment. Hope returned. Even if just a little, as they ate. Marcus looked at their faces, so young, so tired. Some had burns, others had scars. Some held small metal objects, broken toys, photos, pieces of home. The girl watched him feed the others before taking her own piece. She waited until all the children had eaten, then she ate hers, quietly, alone. That night, Marcus built a stronger fire. He stacked metal sheets to block the wind. He placed warm rocks around the children. And he sat close to the girl. He looked at her and asked, "What happened here?" She didn't answer, but she pulled out a piece of metal, smooth and black. On it was a photo, an alien family. Smiling, parents, children. And her, she pointed at each face, then pointed to the sky. Gone, Marcus understood. They were gone. Bombs. War, fire, everything burned, everyone lost, only she remained. She. And the shadows she protected. Marcus looked down, hands shaking. He remembered the war. He remembered the order: strike alien colonies. Leave no survivors. He had flown one. Of those ships, he had followed orders. But now, sitting beside this girl, watching these children fight to live, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Guilt. The girl didn't know who he was, but he knew what he had done. And still, she shared her food. Still, she let him stay. He stood up and walked to the edge of the ruins. He stared into the dark, thinking. The wind blew stronger now, carrying a strange sound. Metal, moving in the distance. He turned to the girl and whispered, "Did you hear that?" She stood, her eyes wide. She heard it too. She looked at the sky, then at the children, then back to Marcus, and then she said her first word to him, "They're coming." The sound grew louder through the wind, a low humming. Like machines waking up after a long sleep, Marcus stood still, heart pounding in his chest. The alien girl Vera pulled the smallest child closer and looked up at the sky. They had to move now. Marcus grabbed the children one by one, whispering gently. "Quiet, quiet," he said again and again. He helped Vera carry the weakest ones, together. They hurried down into the old tunnels behind the ruins. The tunnels were dark, cold, and smelled like old metal and dust, but they were safe for now. Marcus sealed the entrance with broken panels and pulled a tarp across the rocks. Then he waited, breathing hard, listening. Above them, something flew past. A shadow moved across the cracks in the tunnel roof. Then silence, again. Marcus sat on the floor and leaned back. He was shaking, not from cold, but from fear. "I think we're safe," he whispered. Vera didn't answer. She was watching the children, making sure they were okay. One child reached up and touched Marcus's hand. Tiny fingers, warm and soft. The child didn't speak, just stared. Not with fear, but something else. Trust. Maybe? Marcus swallowed hard. He wasn't used to that. Not from aliens, not after everything that had happened. He looked at Vera. She sat close to the others, her body thin, tired. She hadn't eaten much. She always gave her share to the little ones first. Marcus reached into his pouch and pulled out a piece of dried food. He handed it to her. She hesitated, surprised. Then she took it, slowly, and for the first time. She smiled. It was small, weak, but real. And it hit Marcus harder than any weapon, because it reminded him of something he had forgotten. Kindness, back on Earth. During the war, everything was black and white. Humans good, aliens bad, orders were simple: attack, defend, survive. But here, in this dark tunnel, the world felt different. He was the only human. They were the only aliens. And yet, he felt closer to these starving children than he ever had to his own command. "Why did you trust me?" he asked Vera quietly. She didn't understand the words. Maybe, but she looked at him, then at the food in her hand, then back to the children. Her answer was clear. Because he shared. Marcus smiled, but the moment didn't last. A strange clicking echoed through the tunnel, metal feet scraping against stone. Something had followed them. Vera jumped to her feet, grabbed a pipe from the wall. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and held it like a club. They stood side by side, ready. Then a small robot rolled into view. Old, broken, barely working. Its lights flickered, and its voice box made static sounds. "Rescue protocol, activated." It buzzed. Marcus stepped forward, confused. The robot blinked once, then fell over dead. Just an old helper bot, maybe left behind from the colony days. But its words echoed in Marcus's mind. Rescue protocol activated. Did that mean someone was out there? Someone looking. He turned to Vera. "If someone's still out there, I can call them," he said. He opened his backpack and pulled out pieces of a broken comm unit. Vera watched closely as he began to rebuild it. Wires, batteries, old chips. He had to be careful. If he made a mistake, it could send a signal to the wrong people. Or worse, explode. He worked for hours, fingers numb, hands shaking. Vera helped hold parts, handed him tools without being asked. She was learning fast. When the last wire connected, the light on the device blinked. Marcus smiled. "It's working," he whispered. He turned it on and began sending a short signal, a distress code human standard. Then he looked at Vera. "I don't know if they'll come," he said, "but I had to try." She nodded. For a moment, there was peace again. The children slept. The light blinked slowly, and two enemies once on opposite sides of a war shared warmth in the dark. Later that night, as Marcus drifted into sleep, Vera covered him with a thin blanket. Then she sat beside him, watching the blinking light, waiting for someone to hear. The light blinked, again and again. Each flash was a tiny scream into the stars, a cry for help, but not all who hear a cry come to help. Marcus was asleep, breathing slow, his body finally resting. Vera stayed awake. Watching the signal light, her eyes never blinked. Something inside her felt cold, tight, like danger was crawling closer. Then it came, not a sound at first, but a feeling. The air shifted and the ground gave a soft tremble. The signal device made a soft whine, then a click. It had been heard, but by whom? Vera stood up and looked toward the tunnel's exit. She moved fast. Waking Marcus with a sharp shake of his shoulder, he blinked, confused, until he saw her face. Her wide eyes told him everything. "What is it?" he asked, sitting up fast. She pointed to the sky above the tunnel roof. Even underground, they could hear it now. A deep humming, heavy, growing louder. Marcus grabbed the children gently, waking them. No noise. He whispered, "Stay close, don't speak." They obeyed, eyes wide with fear. They had done this before, many times, running, hiding, surviving. Vera led them through a side tunnel Marcus hadn't seen before. It sloped down sharply into darker ground. Cool air blew from deep below. It was tight, hard to breathe, but safe for now. Above, the sky turned black. 3 ships hovered silently over the ruins. Black metal, sharp wings, red lights blinking slowly. They were not rescue ships, they were death. Enemy drones dropped from their bellies, 6-legged machines. With scanning eyes and sharp tools, they spread out, crawling through the ruins like hungry spiders. Looking for life to erase, one drone paused near the signal light. It scanned it, beeped, and sent a signal back to the ship. The beacon had worked, but not as Marcus hoped. Below, in the tunnel, Marcus stopped. He felt the heat above. Drones were sweeping the ground, inch by inch. He turned to Vera. "They'll find the entrance," he said. "We have to distract them." Vera shook her head quickly. "No," she said firmly. "You stay." Marcus looked at her in shock. "You can't go alone," he said. But she was already moving, crawling back up the path without a sound. Marcus wanted to stop her, but the children were watching him. Scared, he couldn't leave them alone. Minutes passed like hours. Then came a loud crack, followed by sharp buzzing and then silence. Marcus moved toward the sound. He crawled up the tunnel, holding a metal bar tight in his hand. As he reached the top, he saw a broken drone. Sparks flew from its body, and next to it, Vera lay on the ground, unmoving. "Vera?" Marcus cried, running to her side. Her arm was cut, her leg burned. But she was breathing, barely. He lifted her into his arms, gritting his teeth against the pain in his own body. The ships above moved slowly now, searching elsewhere. The broken drone must have confused them. He rushed back into the tunnel, carrying her. The children moved aside as he entered. He laid her down gently and opened his emergency med kit. Old tools, weak medicine, but it was all he had. Vera opened her eyes for a moment and whispered, "Did they go?" Marcus nodded. "For now," he said. He cleaned her wounds and wrapped her leg. She didn't cry, not even once, just stared at the children, making sure they were safe. Even when her own body was shaking, Marcus sat beside her, hands trembling. "You saved us," he said. She didn't reply, but the way she looked at him said everything. She would die for them. Even for him, a human, her enemy. But here, in the dark, there were no sides, only survivors and those who helped them live. Later that night, as the fire burned low, Marcus thought of the war again. Of the orders, the fear, the lies. How many had he hurt, thinking he was the hero? Now, the one he was told to fear had just saved his life. He reached out and gently held Vera's hand. She didn't pull away. Together, in silence, they waited for dawn. But deep above, the ships were not leaving. They had found a signal. They would return, and next time, they wouldn't stop. Asterisk. The night was long. The stars above blinked quietly, as if watching from far away. The fire crackled low, sending shadows across the tunnel walls. Marcus sat beside Vera, her breathing slow, her body still. She was hurt badly. Her arm was burned, her leg swollen. She needed real medicine, real help, but there was no rescue. Not yet. Marcus checked the CUM device again. The signal was still flashing, over and over, like a heartbeat in the dark. He didn't know if anyone could hear it, or if they would. Care, the children were sleeping close together, wrapped in thin blankets. Holding on to each other for warmth, their small faces looked peaceful now, but Marcus knew the truth. They were still in danger. He looked back at Vera. Her eyes were half open now, her lips dry. He gave her the last few drops of water. She tried to push it away, saving it for the children, but Marcus whispered, "You saved them, now let me save you." She drank slowly, and her eyes met his. No words, just understanding. In that moment, Marcus made a silent promise. He would not let her die. He stood up and checked his backpack. He had one emergency flare left. It was supposed to be used only if a ship was nearby. But waiting wasn't working. Maybe they needed. To take the risk, Marcus climbed out of the tunnel, moving carefully. He looked at the sky clear. Quiet, cold. The enemy ships were gone for now, but they had left scars across the land. He raised the flare, aimed it high, and pulled the trigger. A burst of red light shot into the sky, bright, loud, impossible to ignore. He ran back down quickly. The children were awake now, frightened by the sound, but Marcus smiled. "That was hope," he said. "They'll see it," Vera gave him. A weak nod, then closed her eyes again. Hours passed. No one came. The fire burned low again. The food was gone, the water gone. But Marcus kept checking the signal light every few minutes. He started teaching the children small things, how to hide quietly, how to follow without making noise. He showed them how to use old wires to trap small animals. They watched him closely. Copying every move, even in fear, they were learning. They wanted to survive later. One of the older children walked over and held out a broken radio. Marcus smiled and took it. "Good find," he said. He opened it, took out parts, and repaired the CUM unit's antenna. Now the signal was stronger. It had to be, then, just. As Marcus was losing hope again, the signal light blinked in a new pattern. It wasn't blinking alone now. Someone was replying. Marcus froze, then shouted, "They heard us." The children gasped. Even Vera opened her eyes wider. A soft light returned to her face. The message was short, beacon located, rescue en route, but Marcus didn't cheer. He knew what Vera was thinking. What if the wrong people heard? It too. He gathered the children, packed up the supplies, then carried Vera in his arms once more. They moved to a deeper part of the tunnel. Just in case, that night Marcus sat awake. He didn't sleep. He stared into the dark and remembered something he had once told a friend during the war. "If I ever get the chance, I'll do it right." Now that chance was here. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a protector, like Vera. He looked down at her. She was asleep now, her face calm. Marcus squeezed her hand gently and whispered, "I won't let you die. I promise." Suddenly, a soft hum echoed above, not loud, not sharp, different from the enemy ships. Marcus crawled up the tunnel to look. And then he saw it. A ship, silver and white, slowly landing on the far hill. No weapons out, no red lights. A rescue vessel. His heart jumped, but then he froze. What if they didn't want to help aliens? What if they only came for him? He rushed back down, lifted Vera again. He looked at the children. All of us, he said, we go together. And in that moment, it didn't matter who they were, human or alien, child or soldier. They were one group now, one family. Marcus carried Vera toward the light. The children followed behind him, and as they walked into the open, toward the ship, Marcus whispered again, together or not at all. Asterisk, the ship hovered in silence. Its lights blinked softly in the foggy dawn. No gunfire, no alarms, just quiet. Marcus stood at the edge of the tunnel, Vera in his arms, children. Huddled behind him like shadows, he looked up at the strange vessel, unsure. Friend or enemy, he couldn't tell yet. The ship's door hissed open, and out stepped a figure in white armor. Not human, but not one of the enemy either. The being raised one hand, palm open, no weapon, just a signal. Peace, maybe. Marcus didn't move. He called out, "We need help. She's hurt." The armored figure tilted its head, then pointed to a round med case in its hand. It moved forward slowly, careful not to startle the children. Then, just as the medic knelt beside Vera, a sharp sound cracked through the air. Like metal screaming, Marcus turned his head fast. A black shape was rising from the far side of the hill. A second ship, enemy class. They had followed the flare after all. The rescue medic looked up and froze. The children screamed and scattered. Marcus dropped to his knees and shielded Vera with his body. The enemy ship opened fire. Not at them, but at the rescue ship. A missile slammed into the side of it. Smoke exploded into the sky. Marcus jumped up and grabbed Vera again. Back. He shouted back into the tunnels. The children followed, terrified, crying. The medic ran behind them, but the rescue ship was falling inside the tunnels. Marcus laid Vera down gently. She was awake now, gasping. "Go," she whispered. "No," Marcus said. "I stay." He turned to the medic. "Do you have weapons?" The being shook its head. "Only medical gear." Marcus cursed under his breath, then grabbed a metal pipe. He ran back out alone into the fire. One man, one weapon, against a ship. He didn't care. He had made a promise. He wouldn't break it. The enemy drones dropped again. Fast, sharp, silent. But Marcus was faster. He slammed one with the pipe, sparks flying. Grabbed its blade arm and used it against the second. He roared like a wild animal. Not with fear but fury. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for them, the children, Vera. The promise he had made, smoke curled around him, his body burned, his hand cut, but he kept swinging. Drone after drone fell. He didn't stop. Then came the big one. A larger drone, twice his size. It dropped from the enemy ship with a crash. Red eyes glowing, scanning, locking on. Marcus gripped his pipe tighter. His legs shook. He was tired, so tired the drone charged. Marcus jumped aside just in time, rolled across the ground, came up swinging, hit the leg joint once, twice. The drone stumbled, but it wasn't down. It turned toward Marcus again, raised its blaster. Marcus knew he couldn't dodge it this time. Then fire, not from the enemy, from behind Marcus. A burst of blue flame shot into the air. The medic holding a rescue torch like a weapon. It screamed and ran at the drone. Flames danced across the armor. The drone turned to face the new threat. And that's when Marcus struck. One final blow, right into its central eye. The drone sparked, shook, then fell. Smoke rising from its broken core. Silence followed. Real silence. Marcus dropped to his knees, breathing hard, his hands shaking. The medic helped him up. No words, just a nod. They returned to the tunnels. Vera's eyes widened when she saw him alive. He knelt beside her and smiled. "Still here?" he whispered. "I told you I'd protect you." The children ran to him, holding on to his arms, legs, his jacket. Their eyes wide with something new, not fear, hope, that night. The fire they built glowed brighter than ever, not because of fuel, but because of something else. A flame that burned inside Marcus, something that couldn't be crushed by war or metal, the flame of a human who refused to give up, even in the face of death. Even when alone, they sat together. One human, one alien protector, and a group of lost children. No longer strangers, no longer enemies, just survivors. Lit by the human flame. The wind was calm the next morning. No gunships in the sky, no buzzing drones, just the soft breath of survival. Marcus stood near the tunnel's edge. His body a map of bruises and burns, but he was alive, and so were they. The children laughed. For the first time in days, soft, unsure giggles, but real. They played with broken pieces of tech like toys, throwing wires like ropes, pretending the cave was their kingdom. Vera watched from her blanket, wrapped in warmth and light. Her legs still hurt. But her smile was real now. For the first time, she looked like a child again, not just a protector. Marcus checked the sky again. The rescue ship, the second one, was finally coming, not a warship, but a true vessel of peace. Neutral colors, soft engines. Blinking lights that didn't scare. He walked over to Vera and sat beside her. "They're here," he said softly. "They're real this time." Vera didn't answer. She just reached out and held his hand tight. As if she still wasn't sure she could trust the future, the ship landed gently on the flat rock above the tunnel. A ramp lowered with a hiss. This time, more medics stepped out, and a human too. She wore a peace badge, a rare symbol, now won. That meant no side, no orders, only help. Marcus stood up and waved them down. The team moved quickly, scanning the children, wrapping them in blankets. Vera was lifted carefully onto a stretcher. But she grabbed Marcus's hand again before they moved her. He leaned close, and she whispered one word. "Stay." Marcus nodded. "I'm not leaving," he said, "not without you." One of the medics pulled Marcus aside. "We scanned the area," he said. "There's something strange nearby, behind the old walls." He handed Marcus a tablet with a small map. A life signal had been marked, but it was still, cold, old, not a person, but maybe something left behind. Marcus followed the signal. His legs hurt, but his curiosity burned stronger. He moved behind the collapsed part of the ruin, pushed aside rubble, then saw a hidden hatch. It was old but not locked. He opened it and stepped inside a small room. Dust floated through the air, and there on the far wall were small carvings. Dozens of tiny handprints, some small, some even smaller. Each one marked with a name, alien symbols, etched with care. But one thing stood out. Among the carvings was a single human word. Written in shaky, careful English, family, Marcus. Stepped closer and saw a pile of small items, broken toys, old bracelets, drawings made with dust and fingers. He picked up one, a drawing scratched onto metal. It showed a group of children, standing with a tall figure, one that looked human. He realized what it was. This was a memory wall. A grave, not of bodies, but of love. These were the children Vera couldn't save. The ones who died before he ever arrived. The ones she buried with silence and protected with fire. Behind her quiet eyes, behind her strength, was a story of loss she never told. Marcus dropped to one knee, his hands shaking, his heart heavy. He had seen war. He had lost friends. But this was different. This was what she carried alone, until he came. He wiped the dust from one corner of the wall, and with a broken wire, carved a new word beneath the others. Human. Then he stood and walked back toward the ship. The children were already being loaded safely. Vera was awake, eyes searching when she saw him. She smiled. Not just with her mouth, but with her whole face. Marcus climbed aboard and sat beside her. He didn't speak, he just held her hand. The ship lifted slowly into the sky. Below, the ruins disappeared into clouds, but what they left behind was not lost. It was remembered. On that broken world, enemies became protectors, strangers became family. And one human flame lit the darkness forever.